Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm still Robert Winters.
Right. And before we go on to, the stuff, we should talk about it. The bike ride.
That's right. So we were both on a
Yeah.
bike ride on. It's every spring and
Yeah.
every fall.
It's the bow tie ride.
The
and
Cambridge
it's
Bike
in
Committee
the fall.
organizes and
Yeah.
largely shepherds it along with the expert help of the Cambridge Police
Absolutely.
Department.
It's the best thing because they close off the streets for you to cross. It's
Yeah.
great.
Oh yeah. And there have been times in years past when there weren't enough. Well, there were either too many intersections or insufficient
Oh.
police officers. So
Oh.
some of us would
Got
basically
caught.
become deputy officers, and
Oh.
we'd just stop our bikes and
Yes,
we'd sort of
and-
direct
yeah.
traffic at some intersection. So I've done that on quite a few occasions.
And it's usually a themed thing. And
Yes.
this one was about the water, although I know they've streamlined the rides by not stopping a lot to explain.
Yeah.
It's on the map they give you, and it
Yes.
has the different, but our main stop was at the water, our
At the-
beautiful water
And we often
to
have
have
a
it.
stop there
anyway.
because it's sort of
Yes,
a place
but
in
we
the
went
middle, and then
inside
we continue.
and
So we got a bit of
and we
a
got
show on.
Cambridge water
yes.
bottles were given out.
That's right.
Wicked good.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I still have. No, actually, I think I dumped out the actual water from the.
Oh,
when
they had a whole water station.
the original, the
Oh.
old water treatment plant, which
Oh,
closes
oh,
in
oh, oh.
early. I
Yeah.
guess it closed about maybe 1999 or thereabouts.
Yeah.
But they did what they called the last batch, and they
Oh, you're
bottled the water.
kidding? You bottled it?
Well, they bottled it,
Oh.
but I had a case of the
Oh.
water. Of course, it sat in these plastic bottles, so
I
you,
have one like
you would
that.
have been crazy to drink it after all those years.
Did you ever watch Lost?
I remember what it was.
Because
yeah.
they had bottled water. It's a Dharma initiative, which was the special, and my daughter worked on that movie in
Oh,
LA,
yeah.
and I still have that bottle with that water in it, so I'm never opening that up.
Right, you
Yeah.
can water the plants with it. That's
No,
probably always good
it's,
for you.
it's a souvenir.
But the thing is so they do this bike ride once every spring, once every fall. Themes always. Sometimes it's just the bow tie ride because
Yeah.
Cambridge is shaped like a bow tie.
Right, that's usually the fall one.
Yeah, and then there's these thematic ones. So there was one year it was on transportation. So I think I spoke at least twice at that one.
Uh-huh.
There would be stops.
There's one on rock and roll. Or
Yeah,
not rock, or music.
music themed ones.
Uh-huh.
So we go by Yo-Yo
History.
Ma's house. I
Oh.
remember, in certain well-known characters in music. There was one on, I think, maybe in literature or authors. I think I could be dreaming that. But there's one on just a history of transportation. So I stopped down East Cambridge and talked about canals.
Oh, I remember that, because
Yeah.
we met by the Galleria. Is that the one?
Yeah,
where
we were down
yeah.
around there, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was another one that was on political history in Cambridge. So I think
Oh,
I
yeah.
spoke 3 times
Oh, yeah.
at that
That's
one.
probably why they're not stopping anymore. 'Cause
Well, no, the problem was that
Yeah.
it's one thing if you've got
Exactly.
100 riders,
It's one thing.
you
but
could
they-
do it, but
but
if you got 200,
and that's
it's
how
tough.
it's grown. So you really
Yeah.
have to keep moving.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, my suggestion to them is what you should do is have somebody ride ahead or be ahead at a significant locations, and as people are coming by, they can slow down or whatever, and you can give a quick talk,
Yeah, that's
just
kind of hard.
so people are
But I don't
aware
think
of
they did that,
locations.
though.
They didn't do it at all.
No. But it was on the map, so you could look at the map and say, "Oh, we're passing this. This is where this happened."
So, but I was sort of spontaneously doing it anyway
I
because
know you were.
I
saw
can't
you.
shut up. So,
Yeah, right.
so I go on Reservoir Street.
Especially water. Yeah.
Because of the water theme, I was saying,
Oh.
and you see the wall here, this is where the old reservoir was on Reservoir
See, I
Street.
didn't know that.
See,
Yeah.
there you go. And but the thing is that this was not just about water supply; it was also
No.
where the coastlines
Also,
were.
where the climate change, they talked about
Right.
that at the.
yeah. So anyway, it's always fun, and we got a great day.
Oh, it was a great day
was-
to do it.
was
Oh my gosh.
It was
Yeah.
good all around, and there's food at the end. You get
Bon
like
mi.
bon mi sandwiches,
Yeah,
which was great.
wonderful. Yeah.
So
Plus, you get free lights if you sign for the raffle. Did you
yeah.
get the lights?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
That's okay. I have more lights than I need
Yeah.
on my bike. But I actually hadn't even been on the bike in a few months, so this was
I
actually
know,
kind of a
you
good
kind
thing
of
to do.
said-
Well, my knee was
yeah,
shot out,
true.
but now I'm better,
Yeah.
so that was worth it. So anyway, I don't know what the theme will be next year, but again,
Well,
as
it'll be the fall.
I actually on the one on political history, I actually talked about one thing I talked about was the temperance movement. We did this over close to where there was a rather famous incident happened over near the Elliott Estate back in the late 1800s. Went to Barry's Corner, which was where the clubhouse for Tip O'Neill was.
Right.
So I could say this is where Barry's Corner
Yeah.
was, right here, and that
That's
was
nice.
that was where
They
it
should
was.
do another one. It's an election year. They should do another.
It's a good
political
theme,
one.
actually, and it's pretty rich, and,
Yeah.
and there's always new stuff to sort of
Yeah. Maybe we
generate.
should just go by all the candidates running for election.
Really, yeah. But anyway, it's a lot of great themes
Yeah.
over the years, so that was really worth it. So,
All right, so let's get back to, you wanted to talk about the election?
so
Yeah.
one of the things I think we mentioned, was it last week?
The 15th, there was a.
All right, so
meeting
there was
about the ballot, right?
Right, so there's a proposal, the idea of which was really generated a couple of years ago, when there was this concern, when there was a proliferation of candidates,
Yeah,
and there was concern, what would we do if in fact we had 28 or 30 or more candidates running for city council? And the way the ballot is laid out, there is a requirement, you must put in a candidate's name, candidate's address. I think you have to put in candidate for re-election for the incumbents. That was challenged, by the way, by Anthony Galluccio's father once upon a
Really?
time,
huh,
who was a candidate for school committee.
huh,
And you also had to, at least under the current rules, if there had been 30 candidates, there would have been 30 bubbles on the
right.
Mark
Oh
Sense
my
ballot
gosh,
for
yeah.
you to fill in the bubble, because you could rank, if you wanted to
Go up
rank from 1 to
Oh,
30, right?
geez, Gosh.
Now, plus the Secretary of State insists that there be 9 write-ins, because it's in the law. So it's
Even on a municipal election.
even if you're a municipal election. I mean, I wish that could be modified.
Yeah, because
But
9, that's
it is
crazy.
apparently in the law, and
Oh,
so,
9 because we have 9 seats.
So yeah, so I
I
mean,
see.
I wanted to sort of have a chat with the Secretary of State about this,
Oh,
but
yeah?
apparently even if he did, he'd say, "I'm sorry, I just have to
Yeah,
follow the
the
law."
law.
But the laws can be changed too. But
Takes a
changing a law just for a little hamlet like Cambridge is
Yeah.
a little bit of an uphill battle.
lot. Yeah,
But the thing is that if you did the ballot in the way, actually, I
Yeah.
don't know if people are going to actually see it, but in the
No.
way that the
Yeah.
typical ballot looks like today.
that's a landscape orientation.
Right, landscape
yeah.
orientation where, the names come across, there's instructions, names come across,
Yeah,
and then there's
and
room
then
for as
there's
many
1, 2, 3,
candidates
yeah.
as there were,
Mhm.
right? So the proposal, and I made some suggestions a couple of years ago about this, was that what would you do if in fact you had more than a certain number of candidates? Because there comes a point, you can't fit in the number of candidates
With all
plus
the-
9 write-ins
Right.
and even fit it on the ballot. And you can't
This is
roll
so
it to the other
small as it
side,
is, yeah.
because that would bias certain candidates over
Right,
others on those
that's right,
ballots.
That's true. Yeah.
So what do you do? So what I did was I ran an experiment where I truncated all the ballot data from past elections, not all past elections, but some, just to see if you chopped off. So for those people who, if there were 23 candidates and they voted for 23, if you just eliminated all their choices beyond 15, what would the effect be on the election? And the fact is, it not only elected the same people, but it gave exactly the same numbers in every single round. In other words, there was not even a perceptible
Slight difference,
change.
right. So it does not
So,
really matter.
so it was really
Yeah,
blatantly clear that it would make no difference
to rank
whatsoever.
above 15.
And then I said, but it would also make the ballot a lot more readable, right? So, that would maybe be sort of the
True.
right way to do it. Now, now, I don't personally, by the way, there's no word yet of any new candidates beyond what we've said in the past.
Good. All right.
So I'm starting to wonder whether we're really going to get the big,
Well, at this
Candidate.
time, 2 years ago, was there a lot more?
When you're into
'cause
May-
we had three
Yeah,
openings. Yeah.
I mean, nobody's officially a candidate until you can pull
July?
papers, which
Yeah.
is in the month of July. So,
And you can just go
if
by
that's
the
July,
opening,
right?
the finance.
Yeah, but the thing is that if you want to be a real serious candidate, you have to raise some money, and you probably
Right.
want to start raising it now rather than later, and you can't raise money unless you're legal,
Right.
which
so
means you
then
have to
that's-
file with the state. So
Right.
there's really about 6 candidates, I think,
Yeah.
in addition to the usual suspects, who are up.
Was that
seeking-
counting the incumbents?
Not
Because
plus
they
the
already have a
incumbents.
little money in there.
Right, so Jan Devereaux is not running
Right.
for
that's the only
re-election,
one
so
we
that's
know of.
8.
Yeah.
Plus 6, I think. I don't remember if I included Adrian Musgrave in that list, but
Oh yeah, she was.
but the thing is right now we've got about 14 candidates. So
That's true,
So
we're already at
it's
14.
honestly it's not an issue now.
Right. but it
And
might
I would be
in the-
surprised if there's some of the candidates from last year could still say, yeah, Paul Toner is still a possibility. I've seen absolutely no movement from Sam Geberu, But the thing is, some of them may come in. But the thing is
Right.
that I don't think you're going to get to the point where you must make a
Yeah.
change in the
Right.
ballot. But I'd still argue, and I believe the Election Commission fully understands, that it would still be a pretty good change because of the simplicity of the ballot.
Right.
So instead of having the
Landscape
landscape format, and this is what it would look like if you cut it down to 15 choices, so there's plenty of room in
Yeah.
that case here. But the thing is, if you had more candidates, when you put it in portrait format, right, in that case, you can fit in 15 choices, name and all the necessary information here, and you still have plenty of room for candidates.
Now, is that 26 candidates here?
I believe so.
Oh, so that makes
So in other
sense.
words, if
Yeah.
you really want to
So
plan
streamlines
for
it,
all
yeah.
elections going into the future,
Yeah.
kind of switching it around this way, putting the instructions on top makes a lot of sense.
And
So-
now they're having there's a hearing on this.
Okay, so
next
here's
week.
the
Yeah.
thing that was a little funny. So Alice Wolf had written a letter and sent it out to multiple places, sort of saying you're trampling on voters' rights and
gosh.
whatever. I think she just doesn't really understand
Yeah,
what
maybe
the non-effect of doing this,
Right.
Other than simply making it simpler for voters.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, so I went to the Election Commission meeting this past Wednesday expecting to go. I walked in the room ready to say, "Hello, Alice."
Yeah.
No Alice, nobody.
No, nobody.
Nobody. So they put a press release out. They put it in every possible means, and the only two people from the public were there were Gary Mello, who's at every meeting, and me.
Yeah.
And so where's the big public
Yeah.
outcry? Answer
Well, it
is
might
there's
be
none.
next week at 1:00 on Tuesday, May 28th.
Right.
Government
Well, or
Operations Rules
tomorrow.
and Claims Committee will conduct, but this is the public hearing to receive an update on the Election Commission's
Well,
discussion.
Right. So the discussion
So,
was
they're
last
also gonna
week.
talk about it tomorrow?
Well, no, I think they're going to vote it tomorrow. So the thing is that
Okay.
one thing I think a lot of people didn't
there is
understand.
public comment. Oh, it's 5:30 tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah. One thing I think a lot of people don't understand is that there's no need to file home rule legislation to make a change.
This can be done
This-
within our own.
This is a change that was I wouldn't say necessarily expected, but anticipated that it could happen should there be changes in voting equipment where there might be a desire or necessity to limit number of voters, number of rankings. And the law from 1938 said to no less than 15 choices. So, and the Election Commission, by simple majority vote, can vote to approve that.
I see.
So I think they're asking for the opinion from
Yeah.
the city solicitor, but they already know the answer because it
Right.
explicitly says it in the
Yeah.
law.
Well, that's
You
good.
know, honestly, that's a 10-cent response from the law department because there's nothing really debatable about it. So I believe the Election Commission will simply vote the change. Jan Devereaux's Committee on Government Operations has a meeting next Tuesday.
Tuesday at 1:00.
At 1
It
o'clock
will
in the
be
afternoon.
televised, but if you want public comment, you should go.
Right. But basically, the city council doesn't have a role in here, but they may want to
Yeah.
opine on the matter.
So they really
They
don't
have no
any
say.
say on
No,
it.
they don't. Right. I mean, I think it could be potentially useful so that people can maybe learn a little bit about,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
some of these truths. By the way, I did run the tests for
Yeah.
not only the 2015 election,
You did it
but
for
I also
other
did it for the
years.
most recent election, 2017, as well as 2013. I could do it do it all the way back 20 years. It wouldn't be hard. But the thing is that I took 3 elections that I thought were pretty
Because they had
clear.
a number of candidates. That was really, isn't
Because
that
there were
the issue?
fair
Because
numbers-
obviously you only have 10 candidates, it doesn't
Right.
matter.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was interesting in the 2013 election, which is the one where there was Minka Van Buzikum asked for the recount.
Oh, right.
In that one, I mean, the recount had slight differences, but very slight
Right.
differences.
Right,
That was not done electronically based on ballot date. It was done with paper ballots. So I
Right.
can't
oh, right. You could-
truncate those. But I
Okay.
can take the actual ballot data when it was done prior to the recount.
Right,
And I can redo that with truncated ballots. And even that election, which had these razor thin
yes,
margins,
that's right.
not a
Single
single
vote.
ballot difference.
Well, it seems to me
So to
Just
me,
go
this
with
is
it, yeah.
this is just
it's a no-brainer.
it's
Like,
really
don't
a
spend a lot of time
simple
doing it.
choice. The only thing I found interesting, but also not unexpected, was in the 2017 ballot data, because it wasn't just because of the number of candidates, but because of the fact that 2 candidates never reached the election quota.
Oh, right.
For that reason, so that was Dennis Carlone and Craig Kelly. For that reason, in the very, very last round, which I sometimes call the slop round, which is when everybody's already been
Yeah.
elected or defeated,
So you just take
and the only thing
yeah,
you're doing is you're taking the last candidate who was defeated and transferring their
votes
ballots
to whoever.
to fill in the buckets.
Right.
Some people make it up to quota, and some don't. Well, because there were 2 candidates who were still waiting for ballots all the way to the very last ballot.
Yeah.
So if you truncate the ballots there, then they might get a few less during the slop round, and that's how it worked out. So there was a change only in the last round after the election was decided.
All
In
right,
other
but
words,
then would
no
that
change.
affect, well then, those candidates that do come in, they don't have quota, would they then not like this?
They shouldn't. It shouldn't matter at
It
all,
shouldn't matter.
because as a lot of people misunderstand it.
Yeah.
They think that the election quota is the number of ballots you must reach to be elected, and that was never the case.
Not the number of ballots, it's.
It is
it's-
true that if during the election process you achieve the quota, you will be then elected.
Yeah,
But the quota is properly understood to be the most ballots you're allowed to keep. Because if you were allowed
I
to keep
see.
too many, then your
oh, so their
constituency
surplus
might not
goes
get
to
there.
their second.
So it's really about passing that surplus to make
Right.
sure that your constituency,
Is-
if they
is
were entitled to,
represented.
let's say, 3
Right.
seats,
Right,
should get their 3 seats rather than
Yeah.
just 1, because one person's hogging all the ballots.
right.
Um,
Such a fair
and
system.
It is
I
a
don't
fair
know, I
system,
just don't
and
like-
every election system
Yeah.
has its flaws. But the thing is that ultimately this is a system that's designed to whittle down, after the first few rounds
Yeah.
when they get rid of the surplus,
Yeah,
it's designed to basically whittle it down until you elect the number of people you need.
yeah,
And you don't have to, not everybody needs to reach the election quota. You just need to be one of the last 9 standing. That's all that
interesting.
matters,
That's true.
right? So
Yeah.
so this time there were some who were sitting there waiting, give me more ballots,
Yeah.
and then if you truncate them, they get a few less.
Yeah,
No big deal, right? So it's a pretty simple thing. So they're having the Government Operations Committee meeting 1 o'clock next Tuesday.
yep, Tuesday the
Right.
28th.
And so people will talk about it, and
Hmm.
I don't think there's a lot to talk about, but if any opportunity to educate people a little bit more about
Mm-hmm.
these things, I figure is a good thing. So
Speaking of things that the city council can't really rule on, I thought it was interesting, they were talking about, I don't know, some street over in, something about curb cuts.
all right,
And it had been.
Pemberton.
Pemberton, and it had been approved by inspectional service, DP, everybody. And Jan, I agree. Like, she doesn't even understand why the city council weighs in on
On
curb
curb
cuts.
cuts, and
When you
she's
have all these departments that have more at stake, they know more about it.
yeah.
Inspectional, DPW, history, all of them.
Part of it is
Why
really
is that?
I'll give you my personal
Yeah, I'd
opinion
like
on
to know
this. is
why.
that
I think it's ridiculous.
Under our planning charter, the city council has limited authority on many things. It can appoint a city manager, a city clerk, a city auditor. It can pass budgets, it can pass ordinances, and it can approve
Well,
zoning.
ordinances, that's a pretty
It's big.
meaty thing. That's
Oh,
pretty
it
big.
absolutely is. But the thing is, if the zoning says this is what you can do,
Yeah.
and then somebody comes in and
wants to do
says, I
something
want to do this and that, and you don't like them.
Wait,
right?
does zoning actually indicate curb cuts? Does it
Zo-
indicate when you can or
No.
can't do it?
No, but what
So-
zoning does say is what you can build in terms of heights and densities.
Yeah, so what's it?
But the thing is, and there are state provisions that say if you have property,
Yeah,
you have the city cannot deny you access to your property.
okay.
Like in other words, if you have a property and you got a parking space on your property, and then the city says, nah, you can't have that you can't have a curb cut to access it, then they just go to the state, and the state says, sorry, city, you're wrong, give them the curb cut.
So that's what these people could do if the city says. if
They're
the council-
entitled to a curb cut.
So,
when,
if the state overrules, then why are they even then bothering to do it? The city.
well, the thing is if somebody came in and said, well, I'd like to have a third curb cut right?
Yeah.
And then the city says, we're not going to give you, you have more than enough curb cuts to your
Oh,
property.
wait, you're saying the city. I'm talking about all these different departments that have to
They sign
recommend
off.
it. So if they
Yeah.
sign off on it, I assume that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And-
if they
and-
didn't like it, they
right,
would,
so
the buck would stop there.
Right, so the traffic department, for
Yeah, the
example,
they're very
might
important.
choose to sign off and say, please move it because you're too
Right.
close to an intersection.
Right, and we need
and
this, yeah, they're the
Turning
one,
traffic, there
right,
could be
okay.
real conflict, so
Yeah,
they routinely will recommend modifications to
okay.
somebody's
But
proposal.
in this case, they all passed it.
That's right.
So I just
There's
feel like,
and so I think it was two councilors, it was Craig Kelly and Quentin Zondervan.
yeah, I know.
And, you know, and others
Well,
who people.
Craig Kelly doesn't like any curb cuts. I
Right,
think
so,
that we heard that.
so we should
yeah.
be denying, we
Yeah.
need to be moving away from
Yeah.
a car culture. And
Yeah.
go, well, you may want to move
Yeah.
away from a car
If I
culture.
have property
But
and
that
I've-
property owner may
yeah.
need a.
And you
or
know
want
what?
its
The
car.
person that doesn't have a driveway or space to put their car would appreciate having that car not park on the street anyway.
Right.
I
though-
mean,
though
yes, it's a
some
curb
argue
cut,
it-
so it's
it
actually,
takes-
it doesn't make any difference. 'cause
It
they
should be a
still-
wash, really.
Yeah.
Because it's probably about a car's width anyway.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it does give somebody exclusive right to go in and out that
True.
way. So I thought it was a little ridiculous for
Yeah.
Councilor Zondervan or Kelly to
Yeah.
sort of say, well, we need to move away from a car culture, therefore we should
yeah,
start
I don't know.
denying
Jan
curb
made a
cuts.
lot of sense, so.
I'll say, you know, also about Jan on that
Yeah.
regard, there was one previous city councilor who routinely protested the fact that city council was making decisions on
Oh,
curb
really?
cuts.
Who was that?
Marjorie Decker.
Interesting.
She was always really
Yeah.
solid about that,
Yeah.
saying, why are we deciding this?
Yeah,
This makes
I
no
know,
sense at
I
all.
know.
But
I mean,
when
it's-
there's a
yeah.
controversial project, the city council sometimes feels less power and wants to exert some power, so
Okay.
they will hold up a curb cut under the belief that somehow they're gonna leverage something.
Even though all these other departments have written off.
It's kind of a pathetic gesture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that hasn't stopped them.
All right, so what else?
All right. One thing just to say quick,
Yeah.
because it's coming up quick, we're
Yeah.
not gonna do TV next week.
No, because it's a
I'm
holiday on
and
Monday
I'm
and
heading
you're,
out of town.
you are, wait, you never head out of
I
town.
gotta do a work-related
Oh.
retreat.
Oh, those things, you only
Those
do those.
things,
Oh,
yeah.
that's gonna be fun. Uh-oh.
No, it'll be okay.
We
It
would
should
not
be
be.
okay. It should be okay. But the thing is that
Yeah.
is it June 1st is the River Fest?
Yes, that will be that
Right?
Saturday after Memorial Day.
And for those of you who love the fact that it's down on the Charles River,
It's not gonna be
it's
there.
not at the Charles
No,
River.
it's gonna be, I
It'll
don't
be
know
back in
why,
Central
but
Square.
what do you mean back? It was only in Central Square because they couldn't do it on the Charles River.
All right. So
whatever
for
reason.
for
Why
20,
isn't it on the
20
Charles
plus
River?
years, it was always down the Charles River, close to the Weeks Footbridge.
Yeah, which I loved.
I really wish it was there.
I know. And
Um,
why can't they do it?
And then they
It's
were
too much-
doing some work along, infrastructure
Oh,
work
that's
along
what
the
it was.
river.
So then it moved
So they moved to
by
Central
the
Square.
Central, and that was
So we think
not
we
good.
did it maybe 2 years perhaps, and
Yeah.
then they moved it back to the river,
But only
but over
further down
by
by
Leechmere Canal.
yes, which wasn't bad, but it's a
I-
much more
yeah.
narrow.
It was sort of
thing.
interesting because you sort of have to walk the water's edge to sort of
but
get
less
to
car.
everything.
I mean, obviously Memorial Drive. Is
Not as
much-
easy to fit in
more
the musical
beautiful.
venues, but
No.
there is this one park there, called the Front,
Yeah.
where they had a big jazz stage, which
Yeah,
was
no,
great.
It wasn't bad.
They
I
had
was
a
surprised that
floating bars
so
with a
why
band
could-
on it in
Why
the canal.
can't? Why didn't they? Why isn't it there?
I don't know why it's there, but maybe
Central Square is very congested.
right
and I
now
know when
with all
they used to have the
construction,
Caribbean Festival,
Yeah.
and it was
Central Square
awful.
is basically a construction site right now.
I know,
but-
so I can't believe it's going to be here.
Well, but if you bend it around and go down Sydney Street toward University Park and have some things down
so
there,
they're going to have a stage probably down by Prospect. 'cause
so
they
they'll have them
usually
in the
close.
middle of the street. Yeah, oh
Oh,
yeah.
boy,
And
it's-
they've got a lot of stages set up. So
I know,
it's like
it's
I
just
think
gonna
11
be-
to 6 or 11
And
to
we're
5.
going to attempt to collect food waste, so that's going to be very interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. But
Smell
you know,
it.
if the weather's good, it is a good thing, and it brings
Yeah.
out a lot of people.
I guess.
So you know,
Yeah.
I'm kind of
I
looking
guess it'll
forward
be
to
easier
it.
to get to because the subway dumps you right there.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's
June
June
1st,
1st,
11
which
to
is
6.
what is that? A
It's a
Saturday?
Saturday. It's always a
Saturday.
Saturday.
Oh,
I don't know
remember.
if there's a rain date.
Uh,
Because if it rains, they
I-
don't have it.
Right. I mean, we
But
actually
well,
had
you
to
can
cancel it
check it up
one year,
and-
so
and
it
look.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a possibility. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a great thing. So let's see. So what else is happening here? So, oh yeah, one other thing, again, not to tread on too much on the controversy, just to get back one little thing about last night budgets hearing.
Oh,
There was an interesting thing when after they passed the loan authorizations, and then they were going to be passing the budgets, then they went and started talking about the school committee budget, and there was a lot of rhetoric exchanged about this. Apparently, there's been such
Oh,
a
yeah.
controversy about why hasn't the city narrowed the achievement gap,
yeah.
and they've been doing this and that for years, and why hasn't there made any
They try
difference?
things every year.
I think it was Councilor Simmons said, if we have to spend another $1 billion to
For
get
10
those
people.
10 students
Yeah.
over the lines, then it's worth
I
it. And
know.
I'm thinking, I don't think so.
That's $1 million each, yeah.
But, again, speaking now as a teacher, and again, I have no right to be speaking about public school really, because I'm teaching
Yeah.
in a different venue. But this notion that somehow you're going to narrow the achievement gap just by dumping money on the problem is so ridiculous. And I think a lot of their strategies for thinking about this are kind of wrong-headed. And there's also a point where if you've been trying certain strategies for 10 years, 20 years, and your gap has been opening, then maybe you have to stop and
Yeah, maybe look at
take a
something else.
pause,
Yeah,
go get a coffee, come back and say, well, maybe our way of thinking of this is wrong. Maybe the whole paradigm of how you address this is wrong.
yeah,
There are some who basically feel that you just sort of have to just put as maximum effort into the best quality education you can do, period, and have the boats rise. But so much of the difficulties are outside of the purview of the staff of
Yeah.
teachers and whatever.
right,
And-
but it's how you introduce subjects and stuff to
Oh,
teach
yeah,
a varied
and that's
group.
evolving,
And that,
right.
you're expecting a lot from your teachers too.
You're expecting a lot from your teachers, but the thing is, I think you can, certainly, we have a lot of great teachers, and I
Yeah.
think, we can have even more great teachers. But it's like
Yeah.
teaching to the test
Yeah,
or teaching to the population.
yeah,
Sometimes doesn't necessarily benefit the
Right, yeah.
population. Or the student when you teach to the
Yeah,
test either. You basically just have to
Mm.
do the best possible job
yeah.
and hope everything kind of
Yeah.
rises up to
We
meet
did make the
that.
high school is featured on the front page of the Boston Globe today.
With the controversy?
No, not
Okay.
necessarily that. It's about the honors program and how
Right.
it includes all students now.
Right.
So it's worth a
So-
read.
Yeah. So I think it was Denise Simmons voted for the whole overall budget, but insisted on
Protested,
being noted
okay.
that she's voting for the school department budget under protest.
Just her?
Could have been
Right,
Zondervan as
Kelly.
well, I'm not sure.
No.
Anyway, see you later.
All right, 2 weeks. Bye.